Hey everybody, how you doing? Crime and Cask here on 97.7 FM, Veterans for Freedom Radio, right here in Cottageville, South Carolina, in the Lowcountry. Shout out to my friends out in Walterboro. Welcome to the Truth in Broadcasting Corporation. You might remember me on, it was in True Crime in the Lowcountry with my buddy Frank. I'm going to be doing a new show. We're calling it Swamp Justice. Swamp Justice on 97.7 FM. Each week, we're going to talk about true crime, not only in the Lowcountry, but we will spend a lot of time in my little backyard here in the Lowcountry. But we're also going to talk about crime, honestly, all over the state of South Carolina, which honestly is just getting out of hand. And I truly mean that. It's getting out of hand. I sometimes can't even figure out how to write fast enough to keep up with the amount of I don't even know what I can say anymore. Can you say the M word, the schmurder, the murder? I don't even know what we can say anymore on TV or on the air. But let's get at it, because Swamp Justice Radio on 97.7 WVFF FM, we're going to be talking about today, we're going to talk about a really important article that is, I know is to everybody has been talking about this for the last 10 years. And I'm talking about Stephen Smith from Hampton, South Carolina. And what a tragic case this case is. And I'm just going to be very open and as honest with you guys as I possibly can. I am here to find the truth. I have always been here to find the truth, wherever it leads me. A lot of times when I find the truth, boy, people get upset. And because they have a specific narrative that they want to control, a specific narrative that may bring them a lot of money, a lot of fans, a lot of repetitive income based off of things that they say. I don't care what they say. I'm going to lead and talk about the truth as much as I possibly can. And I'll explain why here in a second. But let's get through this. I wrote an article last week at Crime and Cask. That's Crime and Cask, CASK. And if you wait till the end, hopefully I remember, I'll explain to you what the cask means. But let's get into it. Bombshell breakthrough in the Stephen Smith case. There was a source that came forward after 10 years. I mean, that's an incredible amount of time. I mean, 10 years is a long time, and I get it. But this we're going to take you back, folks, to July 8th, 2015. I'm going to, hopefully there's people in Brunson, South Carolina that can hear this. Varnville, Islandton, I'm not sure, but let's get into it. So a decade or so ago, in July of 2015, people have always wanted to learn the truth about what happened to Stephen Smith on that day, on July 8th, 2015. And so here's what happened. As part of the CC News Network ongoing investigation, built on, honestly, countless trips to the Lowcountry. I can't even begin to tell you how many times, I know there's people down there that know what my vehicle looks like. And they're like, that guy's crazy. And it might be, but Sandy Run Road, I have been up and down Sandy Run Road. I've been to Stephen Smith's grave countless times. Cleaned it up, organized it. There's a lot of shelves and stuff. And I've been down there a lot. I've been down there during the day. I've been down there in pitch black at night making videos. I have done timing. I have driven around all those gravel roads and back roads, from Prince Williams Road to Sandy Run Road down to 601. you name it. I've even investigated the Murdaughs in this thing, and we're going to get into all of it. All of it. But so I want to get into a little of the legalese, if you will, because I had acted on advice from corporate counsel out of Conway, South Carolina. And after I received, well, let me back up. In early July of this summer, I wrote a story about the Stephen Smith case. And it was a story that, alleged that, the two people had always kind of been involved, Patrick Wilson and Sean Conley. And I happened to write that Patrick Wilson's mother, Laura Derrick, she was an Altman. And so I got a call from somebody, they're like, she's not an Altman, she's not going to be an Altman, and you really should stop calling her an Altman. So I called this person, and an hour and a half later and subsequent phone calls afterward, I have information that this person alleges that, if true, blows the door wide open on the Stephen Smith case. Now, I want to be absolutely transparent here with everyone. This information that I'm going to talk to you about today, that I'm going to read to you, that's on Crime and Cask or the CC News Network, is brand new information. 100% brand new. Never, ever has anybody heard this interview that I know of as of this recording, except for SLED, my attorney, myself, and two other people. And so I got this interview, and I didn't quite know what to do with it. So I called my attorney because it's so big. But again, remember, no one's ever heard this before. This is brand new. This is not some recycled stuff. Oh, yeah, I saw it on the New York Post, and I'm going to rewrite it. This isn't it. If that's what you're looking for. There's a podcaster out there that says whatever I'm saying is a cruel lie, even though this podcaster has never heard, ever in their life, the audio that goes to this interview, which is bombshell breaking news that, in my opinion, should help law enforcement solve this case if it's not already solved. So let me just be clear about that. So, acting on legal advice, I met with SLED on July 29th, actually I said the 28th, in Conway, and presented this newly uncovered evidence. And it's about an hour and a half. And after I had met with SLED, or during in meeting with SLED, by the way, the SLED agent I met with was Agent Peter Radowski. He's the Lowcountry SLED agent. Very nice guy. Some of you may have remembered him from the Alex Murdaugh case. He is now in charge of the Stephen Smith investigation. And during that time at my attorney's office, under camera, under audio, so everybody knows what's going on, he had asked me if I could upload the audio from the interview to SLED's, they call it Axon, AXON, their Axon evidence collection system. And I happily did so, because when it comes to it, this was not about clicks. This was not about really anything except trying to help solve this case. Not only try to help solve this case, but bring dear Sandy Smith and her daughter and the family of the Smith family some closure. And I hope it does. We'll see. But another thing that's very important, because this is such a small area, as you all know, small town. The person that I talked to for this interview, requested that they remain anonymous. They said throughout the interview that I can post this, talk about it, but they wanted to remain anonymous. So what we're going to refer to them as is the confidential informant. Okay, so our source, let's call it source, our confidential source. So we've protected our confidential source's identity. We've upheld our journalistic integrity and shared this information with law enforcement. So it's going to be confidential source. Now, just for a editor's note on this, on the story, we have not independently corroborated the confidential sources allegations you're going to hear about. We recorded the interview. We verified the sources' relationship to Pat Wilson and Sean Conley and furnished the full recording to SLED. Can't say this anymore. So let's get into it. What happened to Stephen Smith on July 8, 2015? So he was a 19-year-old student living in Hampton, and he was found dead in the early morning hours of July 8, 2015. In the early mornings, like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, when the first 911 call. He was lying in the middle of the road with severe injuries to his head, initially ruled a hit and run by authorities. I believe Dr. Presnell out of MUSC down in Charleston, from down in Charleston from Walterboro, had also labeled it hit and run. Many have said that it wasn't a hit and run, but we're going to dispel all of those allegations and rumors based off of what this person came forward and told me. So Smith's body didn't show any other signs of trauma, really, just being struck by a vehicle, and his shoes remained on. People have always said his shoes are on, so he couldn't have been hit by a vehicle because his shoes are still on. Because typically when people get hit by a vehicle, a fast-moving vehicle, they come out of their shoes. I don't know if you remember in the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, when these Secret Service agents came up, they came up so fast. They came up so fast that they literally knocked him out of his shoes. You remember some of you, his shoes were laying on the podium. He was in his socks, but it happens. It's just the force. And he didn't really have, laces on his shoes. I think they were slip-on shoes. We're going to get into that on why he had his shoes on. There also wasn't any skid marks. And I said, his body showed really not much trauma other than being struck by a vehicle. But now we have some new allegations, okay? New allegations that no one else has heard. Not a podcaster, not Eric Bland, although I have reached out to Eric Bland. And the offer is there. If he would like to hear this interview, I would be more than happy to allow him and Sandy to listen to this interview. I think it is behooving upon them. She has been grieving for 10 years. I asked her, she said she would. She was going to check her calendar of work. So we'll see what happens. But the offer is out there for them. And speaking of Sandy, she's pleaded for years, the truth, saying somebody did this, and whoever it is just needs to come forward so our family can finally have peace. And I agree with Sandy. She does need peace. And her attorney, Eric Bland, even echoed the statement. He says, "We urge anyone with knowledge of the events leading up to Stephen Smith's death to contact SLED and bring long-awaited answers." And his partner, Ronnie Richter, added, "Anyone with information, please come forward and provide the critical details needed to solve this case." Okay, I've done that. I've gone to SLED with new information. I've gone to Eric Bland with new information. I've gone to Sandy Smith with new information. And for that, I was declared a cruel liar by some Hulu writer. It's got a bad show on Hulu. Anyways, let's keep going. So my attorney and I, we made it very clear to SLED that we were coming forward with this information for Sandy Smith and her family so they can have closure and bring those long-awaited answers that Bland and Richter really asked for, constantly asked for. Now, let's get into it, because all the statements below are coming from a confidential source, okay? And we have not independently corroborated those, and so I just want to make sure that. But in a recorded interview that lasts over an hour and a half, our confidential source told this network, the CC News Network, Crime and Cask Investigations, that on the night of July 7th, 2015, our confidential source arrived at a home on Prince William's Road in Brunson, South Carolina. Some of you may know where that particular road is. It is right off of Sandy Run Road. This person said they arrived at about 11:30 p.m. and upon arrival asked where Patrick was, Patrick Wilson, whom they referred to as Pat. And the other person that was there at this particular house, and this house is where Patrick Wilson lived. It was a trailer, and he lived there with his great-grandmother. And the response from his great-grandmother was he and that Conley boy, referring to Sean Conley, went out for the night. Okay, so it is the night of July 7th, 2015, and according to the witness, Sean Conley and Patrick Wilson are out for the night. Okay, it's 11 o'clock. So then the confidential source goes on and say it was just a few hours later, around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, that they referred to as Patrick and Sean, they returned to Patrick's home on Prince William Road, just around the corner from where Stephen had been hit. And the confidential source goes on to say, and I quote, Patrick told us, I'm not feeling good. And then he threw up and threw up and threw up. The source recalled. Then he said, and he called on the name, he says, I think we killed somebody. I think we killed somebody. Those are, end quote, by the way, those are really damning words that this person heard directly. But let's keep going. Confidential source continued on with their statement alleging, and this is pretty deep here too, says, I know for a fact that they hit and killed Stephen Smith. I know they were down that road. I know it to be a fact, end quote. The source repeated this assertion with conviction, adding to their allegation, and I quote, Patrick said, he said it right there in front of me and another person. And I repeatedly asked, this is such alleged damning information that I wanted to be sure. And I'm like, you're talking about Patrick Austin Wilson and Sean Levi Conley, who lived on Prince Williams Road and on Sandy Run Road. And on the evening of July 7th into the morning hours of July 8th, they were together and they came home and Patrick told you those words. And I said, did he say it to his great-grandmother? And they're like, no. Well, yes, but I was there. I heard it firsthand. I heard it come out of his mouth. So you can imagine I was like just completely floored. And they referred to it as raw and disturbing, and honestly, rightly so. Noting that while the other person in the room with Patrick and the source had initially dismissed it as drunken rambling by Wilson, but that moment stuck with his source ever since. And according to the source, Patrick was on something that night. According to them, they said Patrick was on something that night. He was high. I heard him say it. He said it right in front of me, end quote. Confidential source alleged. Again, we keep saying alleged. This is what the confidential source said to us in a recorded conversation that SLED has. So I went and I followed up one more time in the interview to be absolutely sure that it was Patrick and it was Sean and Brunson. Actually, I think I did it 3 times, and on the 3rd time they were like, they thought, were you dense? Yeah. How many times do I have to say it? I'm like, okay. The only death that was reported in Hampton County on the night or the morning of July 8th, 2015 was the death of Stephen Smith, where a passing tow truck driver saw him laying in the road and then called 911. And if you want to hear that 911 tape, all you have to do is go to Crime and Cask, and it's there. So we go back to the confidential source, and according to them, Wilson told them, and quote, "I think we killed somebody," and they told us this in a recorded interview. And this is what this is called in the legal terms. And again, this is not legal advice. I'm not giving legal advice. This is what I looked up as public information, and I'm relaying it to you. This is called a statement against interest, admission by a party opponent. And that's under Federal Rule of Evidence 801D2, and mirrored in most states, including our good old state here, South Carolina. And such a confession may be admissible, subject to the court's ruling, because it comes directly from a party to the case, i.e., the accused, Mr. Wilson. And it's only hearsay. People say, well, it's hearsay. Well, it's only hearsay if someone else heard it from someone else who heard it from Patrick, and that person is testifying or repeating it. That's hearsay. And we'll get into some of that in a little bit. Then that becomes what's called double hearsay, which is generally inadmissible in court unless each layer falls within a valid exception. And it may be partially admissible in court if the source testifies or has a recorded affidavit, video affidavit. So let's think about what can SLED do with this information? Well, a confidential source's firsthand account of Patrick Wilson's confession, alleged confession, could be presented to a grand jury, number one. Subject, of course, to prosecutorial discretion and evidentiary rulings, findings, etc. And since the source directly heard Patrick say, I think, quote, "I think we killed somebody," end quote, and described the physical distress, repeatedly vomiting afterward, this is consistent with the source's account of a confession. Now, the South Carolina Attorney General's office, Mr. Alan Wilson, his office could present under Rule 801 D2A an admission by party opponent, which is not hearsay, which could be presented to the grand jury, subject again to some decisions by the judge. So let's just go quickly through the timeline of Stephen Smith and July 8th, where he was found dead on the road. His body had severe head trauma. And on the side of his head, there is like a crescent moon cut. And I have interviewed a few medical personnel on this, nurses and including doctors who deal in this type of head trauma. And if you look at my old self here, we all have lines in our forehead. And typically our lines in our forehead kind of move in this way. So when there's an impact, like a hard plastic impact, sharp, it's going to cut that open, and then the skin generally is going to want to go into this crescent moon thing. And July 15th, SLED initially declined the case. They kept it with the South Carolina Highway Patrol. And they did what's called this MATE report, which is a multidisciplinary accident investigation team. And in 2015-16, I'm jumping around here, but 2015-16, the investigation kind of stalls, and unfounded, and I can't say this word enough, unfounded rumors circulate that Buster Murdaugh may be connected to the Stephen Smith case. Now, his name appeared in that MAPE report several times. The report from the South Carolina Highway Patrol. So somebody out there was running that rumor around in that community with those type of aged kids. No one has come forward to me anyway and said, hey, we told the Highway Patrol this. And no one is charged, and the Smith family believes Stephen now was murdered and that the investigation was influenced somehow and mishandled. I think Sandy even sent a letter to the FBI alleging that it was Buster, and that Alec and his family are covering up. Now let's jump ahead to June 7th, 2021, and now we have the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh. Now, this is important and this is interesting. By the way, I wrote a book about this. Actually, I wrote two books. One is called Defending Alex Murdaugh, and the other one is Enough is Enough by the Egg Lady, Juror 785, Myra Crosby. June 22nd, a short while after the murders, SLED reopens the Stephen Smith case. And they say based on evidence uncovered during the double homicide investigation, SLED officially reopens the investigation into Stephen Smith's death. But SLED has yet to give any specific details to that. But what I thought was interesting was that Buster Murdaugh was interviewed by two SLED agents in their car just days after the murder of his mother and his brother. And it's about an hour interview or so. You can see it. Okay, and I think I have it linked in a couple of my articles here about Stephen Smith. But there's a point in the interview which is interesting, where it looks like the SLED agent is kind of like throwing it to the SLED agent in the back seat. Yeah, I've got some paperwork. I gotta write some things down. You got any questions? Oh yeah. Stephen Smith, what do you think about all this? And he's like, what do I think about all what? Anyway, long story short, they asked some really weird questions about Stephen Smith. Any harassment about Stephen Smith? Any questions about Stephen Smith? And Buster's like, no. I mean, I've seen stuff on the news and social media, and yeah, we had some people say some things, but other than that, so it's kind of a nothing burger for Buster. At least it appeared so. Now let's jump ahead to March 2023. We have SLED confirming Smith's death is now a homicide. And in that same year and month, his body was exhumed by his mother. They did a GoFundMe with some podcasters and exhumed his body and had his body reviewed by medical personnel. But we had Dr. Aaron Presnell's original autopsy in 2015 is heavily scrutinized for ruling blunt force trauma to the head as caused by a vehicle impact. I don't know why. We're going to get into it. The second autopsy performed April 2023. New leads, public pressure running into 23 and 24. In January 2025, there was a $30,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of culprits in the death of Stephen Smith, based off of new information. And in January 2025, Eric Land and his co-podcaster raised it to $50,000 with new credible and material information leading to arrest in Stephen Smith homicide. So there you go. Major witness interviews with us, me, and that was in July, early July. I think it was right after the 4th. Now, some of you might be sitting here listening going, okay, we've heard this type of confession before, haven't we? Kind of. It involves a guy by the name of Daryl Wilson, who is a local, lives around Walterboro, Varnville area. So according to former Hampton City police officer Nick Ginn, I think he even was on the Varnville or Hampton City Council at one time. I'm not sure. So he said that Daryl Williams called him in December of 2015 and said that Stephen Smith had been struck by a vehicle, specifically by the side mirror of Sean Conley's truck. And Sean Conley at the time drove a metallic blue Chevy Z71 lifted pickup truck. Okay, so Ginn said in the interview with South Carolina Highway Patrol, basically Daryl called me, and this is quote, basically Daryl called me and said, look, he said, this is what I was told. He said, Patrick came over to the house and he told me that Sean Conley was drunk and hit something. This is what Ginn recounted. And he said he went back the next day to see what it was. I don't quite understand that. If you think you hit something, you stop and pull over and look. But anyways, he said he went back the next day to see what it was, and he saw a lot of police out there. So he talked to one of the cops. Which cop? And then he had left, and he learned, I guess by media, that someone had been killed on that same day, and that's why the police were there. Does that sound remotely real to anybody? All right, so this is that was Nick Ginn saying that to South Carolina Highway Patrol. And Williams also told Ginn that Sean called Wilson crying, saying that's what had happened. So when we get into what we talked about before, this is hearsay. So this is Daryl Williams telling Nick Ginn what he heard Patrick Wilson tell him, what Patrick heard Sean tell him. I think that's double hearsay. But again, not handing out legal advice here, but just thinking with the whole brain. And according to Daryl Williams, Patrick was so overwhelmed after retelling the story that he became physically ill, and he started to throw up outside. Now, if you recall, our confidential source said the same thing after Patrick had told him just moments after hitting Stephen Smith, allegedly, that Patrick started to throw up. So these two things match up. Patrick apparently likes to, shouldn't say that, when he's saying bad information, really bad information, he throws up. So Patrick was crying, and he threw up. And that emotional response led Williams to believe that Wilson was telling the truth. But our source in our interview offers a more chilling theory, I believe, one shaped with their intimate knowledge of Patrick Wilson's habits and past conversations, if you will. And we asked the source if they believe Patrick confided in Daryl, and the answer was, quote, probably did, said the source. All right, so how does what the confidential source, what they told us in this new information, never heard before by anybody, versus what Daryl Williams had said? Because there's going to be a lot of people, and I've heard already that people are, well, I've already heard that before Daryl Williams said that. No. This is not anything that Daryl Williams said. Nothing what I'm telling you is something that somebody told me that Daryl Williams said. Not whatsoever. What our confidential source had told us, again, confirming with my attorney, this was called firsthand testimony of a party admission. I know it sounds a little whatever, but they claim that they personally heard Patrick Wilson say, "I think we killed somebody," end quote. And this is legally considered a firsthand statement, which would likely qualify, as I said, under the Rule 801 D2 and South Carolina Rules of Evidence as an admission of party opponent. It's not hearsay and could be admissible if Patrick and Sean were ever charged. So it's got some legal strength. Versus Daryl Williams' account to Nick Gang, which is double hearsay, and the no established exception is going to cover that unless Daryl testifies. But even then, Daryl's testifying what he heard Patrick say was told to him by Sean. So that definitely is hearsay, and that would get kicked out. All right, so let's talk about how it could have happened. And this is based off of, I had two interviews. One with actually I had multiple with confidential source, but I had one with Patrick Wilson himself in August of 2024. And Agent Radowski has that as well. I listened to that. This was back, if y'all remember, I had cancer and I had radiation, and my throat was, I could barely talk. I was talking like that. It was bad. Anyway, so he has that information. He has that interview with Patrick. And now here's what they believe happened, allegedly. Okay, so Sandy Run Road. You've got to picture Sandy Run Road. It's a narrow road. It's got one solid yellow stripe as you're heading towards Conley's house, and it has stripes on the other side closest to the cornfield. Okay, this is important because there's a cornfield right there in Sandy Run Road. And the source confirmed to me that Wilson and Conley frequently hunted feral hogs at night, and they would use high-powered rifles and shoot them from a moving truck. Okay, so this coincides exactly what Wilson had told me in our interview. And when I asked him how many he's shot, it was 200. I mean, he didn't even know how many it was. So this coincides with that. So they were out hog hunting. This is what they think, they were out hog hunting. Now, when you go hog hunting, here's what you do. And I've talked to many people down in the Lowcountry about this. Everybody says the exact same thing. Nobody says anything different. And if they do, there's just a singular person to maybe do something different. So if you're going to hunt from your truck, number one, you do it at night because hogs are really active at night. Number two, you're going to shut your headlights off. Shut your headlights off. That bright white light is going to spook those hogs if they're coming out at the end of the cornfield to go around into the next row. Then you're going to either, depending on what side you're going to shoot on. So if the driver's side, in this particular case, Sean Conley's driving the truck, Patrick Wilson's not going to shoot inside the vehicle in front of Sean. What he's going to do is roll the window all the way down, put his butt on the door so that he is over the top of the truck and the gun is facing into the cornfield. And then Sean or whoever's driving may take a flashlight, but they're going to use probably some sort of a screen over the top, like a green or red hue, to not spook these hogs. It's all about not spooking the hogs. And here's the other thing. And anybody that's driven down Sandy Run Road, and for that matter, most of the roads, the back roads, let's say, in and around Hampton County, they're made of some hard, like shell and gravel, and they're loud. And I mean loud. You can hear a truck coming down Sandy Run Road for a long way. I mean, before you can see the vehicle. So you can hear it, which was also confusing to everybody. Like if he could hear it and you could see it, why would he be out in the middle of the road? Well, based off of what this person heard and my interview with Patrick Wilson, we're going to tell you what we think happened. So sometime based off of the interviews, sometime in the morning hours of July 8th, it's been alleged that Sean was driving and Patrick was Patrick was the passenger. And Patrick told me in his interview with me, he liked to use a high-powered 9mm rifle. I don't know if that's what he was using that night, but he did tell me that he shot out some plastics piece on the side view mirror of Sean's truck just a few weeks before Stephen had died. So I'll go with that. He's using a 9mm high-powered rifle. Is that what you should use? I don't know. I don't know. Hunt hogs. But let's just go with that. So now you're driving down Sandy Run Road, heading towards Sean's house, and you're driving on the correct side of the road where the solid line is. But Stephen was found almost in the middle of the road, but if it was the right side of the road, he was just on the other side of the line in the stripe line, closer to the cornfield than he wasn't closer to the cornfield, if you get my drift. And he was kind of, laying in an odd fashion on the ground. Back of his head was cracked and bleeding out. And so what they allege, and if you look, in fact, let me see if I can show this to you guys on my, let's see if I can figure this out. Share screen. There we go. There we go. Now, right here is the truck. This sled truck right here. These are all the trucks. There is the corn. There is the grass. There is Sean Conley's truck. And if you look on the driver's side, the passenger side, there's this it's almost like pointed. It comes out. These are not stock mirrors. These are tow mirrors. But let me try to find where Stephen was. I'm going to show you. I'm sorry to rip through this. Okay. So here's Stephen. So here's the corn over here. So this is from the opposite side. Here's Stephen laying over here. So he should be walking over here on this side, but he's over here. Why is he over here? So let's look from the other direction. Let's look. Here's the other. So here's the opposite direction. Now, if you look, here's where the cornfield is. And in this cornfield is where the hogs absolutely love corn. So the hogs are just going to get into this corn like crazy. All right. So now we've got this here, and we've got this grassy area right here. This is a large swath of grass, and you can see there's tire tracks on there. And I don't know if I got this directly from South Carolina Highway Patrol. I don't know if this was from patrol cars on the side of the road or if this was from the vehicle that hit Sean, but excuse me, they hit Stephen, allegedly hit Stephen. So here we go. Now you're coming down the Sandy Run Road this way, and to get to this cornfield, you need to get closer to it, and you need to be quiet. So you slow down to about 10 miles an hour, maybe a little bit less, but not much. You're going to slow down about 10 miles an hour, and then you're going to turn your headlights off, and you're going to go from driving on the right side of the road to the wrong side of the road. So you're going to be driving into oncoming traffic. Although on Sandy Run Road at 3 o'clock in the morning, there is no traffic. And if there was, you would see it, half a mile away. So you'd have plenty of time to react. So what you do, according to Patrick's interview with me and according to what this confidential source told us, they would move over into the grass to quiet those large tires you see there. See those big knobby tires? Those things are loud in the road. Those are going to spook hogs. So they would allegedly move over into the grass and then drive slow and then turn their headlights off. Now, think of it this way: if it's you, and I'm thinking if I was Stephen and I'm walking home to my dad's place, I'm walking on this side of the road and I see a truck coming down with its headlights on, and then all of a sudden it turns its headlights off and it pulls over and starts slowing down, driving really slow with its headlights off with some sort of flashlight that you can't really see what it is, but you're like, oh, they're pulling over for me, because this road is, I think, 45, 55 mile an hour road, and you're going 10 miles an hour. It would appear to someone standing on that road that they're pulling down, they're pulling over the side of the road to pick you up. So what does he do? Because maybe they're going to, looks like you're going to drive right by him. He walks out into the road, and he's left-handed, so he raises his left hand to kind of say, hey. And I want to show you another photo. I think it's here. I hope it's here. Yes, okay. This photo right here, that little white sheet is Stephen still laying in the middle of the road. And you can see right here, this cornfield has stopped and there's open grass. And in fact, there's a telephone pole right there. Now, it's alleged and believed, in my opinion, that if you're driving down that road trying to shoot hogs at 3 o'clock in the morning with your headlights off, and you run out of corn and you see a telephone pole, you're going to pull out back into the road for just a moment to then pull back over here where the corn begins again. And if you look, if you're driving here for this moment to pull back out where Stephen Smith is standing, and you would hit them with allegedly Patrick sitting on the windowsill of the truck, and they pull over, and there's tire tracks right there as well. So interesting, and we don't know if he, they were still in the grass, and maybe he was walking over, and Stephen was in the grass and got hit and got knocked back. I mean, that we don't know, but it does make sense. That's all I'm going to say. It does make sense. So let's jump back. See if I can figure this out again. Stop screen. Hey, I figured it out. Here we go. Look at me. And for those on the radio on 97.7 FM, we are in Cottageville, South Carolina, Veterans for Freedom Radio, 97.7 WVFF FM. Sorry you didn't get to see that, but you can kind of go to my website. You can check it out, and you can see what picture, because we're also streaming live here on YouTube and Facebook and others. So go check that out there, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So now let's kind of judge you. I jumped all over here in my story. So now we know what the confidential source believes happened. My opinion, based off of my interview with Patrick, and we've heard similar confessions before from Daryl. We've seen Sean's truck, but what did Patrick tell me in the interview? I'm going to tell you. When I interviewed him in August 2024, he blamed Buster. He said he and Sean were drinking heavily that night. They were doing a lot of drugs. They ran out of drugs, and in the morning they went to go get some more drugs. They went to the drug dealer's house, and along the way there, they got stopped by a license check, and by a guy by the name of, in Hampton County Sheriff's Department, by the name of Officer Craig Smith. Now, this is interesting because 82 days prior to July 8th, 2015, on April 18th, 2015, that same Sheriff's Officer Craig Smith arrested Patrick Wilson for attempted murder. So make sense on how he's just going to let him go. Plus the fact he was underage, and they smelled, according to Patrick, they said they smelled like alcohol because they've been drinking all night long. They were high and coming down, and they said that he said that Craig Smith found a bottle of moonshine in the back of Sean's truck, and he just jumped on the back of the truck, grabbed the moonshine out of a cooler, and then took it and sent them on their way. Okay. I don't understand that, but the warrant that was listed lists Patrick Wilson as 5'4" and weighed 110 pounds when he was booked on April 18th, 2015 for that attempted murder. And that was a case where it was on kind of jumping around here, but it was a case where he allegedly, Patrick had allegedly shot at somebody who had owed him some money. And even Sean Conley made a statement and said, yes, in fact, he did grab a gun from my truck and shot at this person. I'm not going to go into that, but it was interesting that Patrick told me that he and his grandmother went to go see Alex Murdaugh based off of Paul Murdaugh telling him to go see his father. Went down to PMPD, PED, and saw Alec. And Alec referred him to attorney Corey Fleming. And for those of you playing along at home, Corey Fleming is sitting in federal prison for a conspiracy with Alec Murdaugh to defraud Gloria Satterfield's estate, an insurance company. But anyways, that particular attempted murder charge was dropped down to basic assault, and it's still live. It's still out there, but right now it's marked as what's called nolle prosequi, which is basically a Latin term meaning that the prosecution in the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office has decided not to pursue charges against Patrick. Special note, Alec Murdaugh was in the 14th Solicitor's Office during that time as a volunteer assistant solicitor, whether that has anything to do with it or not. So it's an interesting case, and you know the confidential informant went on to tell me a lot of other inside information about Patrick. Of course, he's been in and out of jail. He was in the Greenville County Jail a few times for not showing up for a trial where he was accused of stealing a trailer, stealing other things. He's been accused by this person of stealing from them, allegedly burning his father's house down because his father wouldn't give him some money. A lot of allegations of this stuff of Mr. Wilson, but in and out. And in fact, I think he was just in the Hampton County Jail, and I think that was also for alleged stealing as well. Stolen goods under $2,000. There's the Greenville. If you go to crimeandcast.com, there's a picture of him in the Greenville County Jail. As for Conley, he's currently suing a company called Genuine Parts Company in Hampton Auto Parts. He was allegedly burned severely when fuel from a gas can that was poured over a burn pile by Conley, and the gas vapors ignited, flashed back into the container, and caused an explosion. Conley was allegedly sprayed with burning gasoline, resulting in alleged catastrophic injuries, and he is being represented by another attorney in that particular case. But what I think was interesting in all of this is that during this time, between, 2015, 2017, Conley had a total of 27 cases against him. Actually, it's from 2014 up to 2014 to present, so the last 11 years, 27 cases against him. He said 17 traffic violations, 7 criminal charges, and 3 civil cases. So what happens next in all of this? Well, as I said, SLED has it, and the Office of the Attorney General is well aware of this. They're well aware of all the information I gave to them, new information that I gave to them that's never been heard before. So stop saying that it wasn't. But our confidential source had some thoughts on what they told us in our exclusive interview. And they said, and I thought was interesting. I don't want anyone saying, why didn't I speak up sooner? I'm telling you now, I know in my heart, Patrick and Sean did it. He, referred to as Patrick, told me they hit someone and think Sean and Patrick, killed someone, end quote, the confidential source alleged. For now, I guess we're just going to have to see what SLED does and how they respond, how the Attorney General's office, if they've had a break in this case, if they've taken to a grand jury. By the way, I've given them, and I told Agent Radowski, I would give them time on this because they deserve that, but I wasn't going to give them forever time. I gave them at least 3 months and gave them a couple of weeks notice before we're going to post a story. So we were very professional in how we communicate with them and giving them a long timeline. And again, the Smith family attorneys, they previously stated, we understand that providing information about a crime can be difficult. It is. And we want to support the community however we can to bring closure to the Smith family. That's according to Eric Bland, the attorney for Sandy Smith. So what I said was acting out of that very spirit, Mr. Bland, that I took this media company in this exclusive interview, first heard anywhere by the CC News Network and Crime and Cask Investigations, and carefully evaluated how to handle this particular case. And rather than rushing to publish or sensationalize this thing, the decision was made in consultation with legal counsel to work directly with SLED on this thing and ensure this new information, never publicly stated anywhere, was properly preserved and handled. I believe, anyways, this was a journalistic responsibility, civic responsibility. And I, for one, am grateful that Bland Richter, that law firm, recognizes the importance of this new evidence being placed in the right hands. In fact, I had a text tonight. Now, I spoke with Eric Bland, so I'm not sure why he's saying this again, but he had told me to go ahead and I'll pull up the text here so I have it correct. He says, I am not SLED, and we've been consistent about asking people to go to SLED with evidence. Go to SLED, please. And my response was, I have. I met with him on July 27th at my attorney's office. He was given everything I have. So I did go to SLED per Eric's instructions. And, I guess the podcaster wants to control everything, but you can't control this. You don't know who this person is. This person's never been talked to by anyone prior to July of 2025. SLED's never spoken to them. Nobody knows who they are, except for me and SLED and two other people who are going to keep it confidential. But we will continue to investigate this case and provide updates as new information emerges, or if arrests are made. And so we'll see if this information, if SLED thinks this information is credible, if the grand jury thinks this information is credible. But I want to make certain that we let our viewers know on video, on all the different social media channels, and on 97.7 FM, Veterans for Freedom Radio, the Truth in Broadcasting Corporation, that this is what the confidential source is saying, that they alleged, they heard, and we are repeating it as journalists to tell you what they told us, and tell you that that source was found, the information found, not the information, but the person not only was credible, cognizant. It was just an interesting conversation that was taped. And I just thought, and we confirmed a lot of things that they told us, what the relationship is and this type of thing. So that is interesting. And we had our 100 and I'd say 150,000. We have over 200,000 followers on social media now. And I tell you, everywhere. We're on X at CC News Network, TikTok, same thing at Crime and Cask, Facebook, Crime and Cask. Everything's Crime and Cask. Instagram, check us out there. We do this talk radio show on 97.7 FM. I am on Amazon with the books that I'm selling. I've got 3 books out there. We do cameo appearances. We're on Spotify and Blue Sky Network. And Lemon 8 is the newest one we're on. I mean, it's hard to keep up with it. But on Spotify, I'm going to try to play this for you as our little outro. But we've got a new song out. It's called Swamp Justice Radio, or Swamp Justice. Swamp Justice Radio just came out. It should be available on Spotify and wherever you listen to your music online soon. But here's a little outgoing for you guys. Cask coming at you. We are at a little over 1 hour. Thank you for listen. If you stay this long, put down in the comments, I stayed this long. Crime and Cask, I was here the full hour. And I'll personally send you a very nice thank you note. You say along, but I think this is such an important issue. I hope y'all can hear me over the music. Like, subscribe, follow, tell all your friends about it. You know what to do on all the social media. This again is 97.7 FM, Veterans for Freedom Radio, the Truth in Broadcasting Corporation. We'll see you later, guys. Talk again. The Swamp Justice is going to be coming to you once a week, and I'll start getting some times and dates for you. But you can listen to me multiple times on 97.7 FM, live on the radio, or wherever you get your social media. Thanks. See you. Crime and Cask.